Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. You know you are welcome anytime. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 23rd Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. We're here to grow in our journey together. I'm Milan Starcic, and this is my co-host, Andrew Normand. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We're two souls on the path of recovery with a desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Today's topic is courage. The dictionary definition of courage is strength in the face of pain or grief. The Middle English root comes from denoting the heart as the seat of feelings, and the Latin root of it is from the word cor, meaning heart. But what does it mean to you, Andrew?
Man, courage. Courage means a lot of things to me, Milan, and it's good to see you. And Merry Christmas to you and everybody else. You're looking marvelous there. Courage is the ability to face danger, pain, or uncertainty with a choice and willingness to do so. So courage is not only having to survive, but you got to find the strength to be able to push through those things, right? You're not gonna push through anything without any strength. And where do we get that strength from? That's really where the question comes in: is where do we derive that strength from? And it's got to come deep within, Milan. When we get into these rooms, we're told that our own self-will got us here, right? Our best thinking got us here. And so we have to understand that we're not the maker of this thing and what's going on. So we have to turn it over. We got to surrender initially, and I think it takes a lot of courage, man. And there's a couple phases of courage when I think about it. And we'll get more into that later, but being able to come into these rooms and then to be able to have the courage to surrender to this program, to surrender to something other than yourself is an extremely courageous act. I don't care what position you're in, whether the court has you doing it, whether you're in jail and it happens, whether you are outside of that, whether your family's you're in an intervention process. I don't care how it happens. But if you find that courage to actually surrender, it's a life-changing process, whatever that is for you, when you can finally surrender to this process. So courage is that is utmost strength and perseverance through the hardest of times, right? And it's really it's through the pain that we learn a lot of those lessons that we really need to. A lot of us shut down, whether we're in an addiction or not, active addiction or not, we'll shut down and not push through those things. And what happens is our mind keeps track of us shutting down, right, Milan? Like if we shut down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times and we don't really even know it, our mind just is slowly losing its ability to like push through those times. Is what I found, right? And if you can find the courage to push through a lot of those tough times, your mind will keep track of that too. So on the upswing, you'll stay more courageous in your endeavors and whatever you come against, right? What about you?
Well, courage was something it was actually almost going to be my first recovery tattoo because I realized when I was in treatment that one of the JFTs was about courage in that period there, but somewhere between October 13th and the 18th of November. So if you're ever going to see that next year, you'll be like, hey, that was the one he's talking about. But anyway, I realized at that point that it was taking heart, like the literal root of that word. It's like the French word cour, or like I said, the Latin word cor, and it means like having the heart, like, or in some ways to me, it feels like it means like something that I put my heart and soul into. And for me, it took me until October 1st to get to that point where I had the courage to admit the truth about my addiction. And before that, it was just masked in lies and denials and just filtered in a way that wasn't admitting the reality to myself. And, and then after, my event there, which I've described a bunch of times, and I'm not going to go there right now. I don't want to get derailed in my thoughts. but,
Yes.
but my wife and daughter pretty much demanded, like, if I was going to be part of the family anymore, that I needed to go to treatment. And I wasn't opposed to the idea. But, one thing my daughter said to me when she was younger, she said, "Dad, you're not afraid of anything." And I said to her, "No, I'm afraid of everything. I just don't let fear rule my life." And so, to me, I didn't know if the treatment center, like, I pictured the treatment center like jail. Like, honestly, I pictured it like I was going in, I was going to be with addicts,
The inmates.
the inmates, and like it was going to be
Breaking the law, breaking the law.
these people that were like scary or dark or evil. And I walked into a whole bunch of people like me just wanting to change. But to walk in that door, I was scared shitless.
You don't know what you're going to run into.
I have no clue. And you know what? Ah, God, if I had known what it was years ago, I would have changed my life earlier. Like anybody who's out there listening to this, who's sitting on the fence about, like if you have the means to go for a round of treatment somewhere, or if it's being offered to you from a family member, it is going to be the greatest gift you can ever give yourself
Please
to
do it.
go and focus and work on yourself,
Please do it.
unaccosted by the responsibilities of life. Like there was no greater point in my adult life that I got to know me better in. Um, and so I walked in there scared shitless, and young Gabriel, who you've seen on meetings, who hasn't been on in a
Yes.
while,
Yeah.
he looked up at me from the group of people.
He was
And he,
there.
oh yeah, he was there, and he had been
Okay. I
he had
didn't know he
been
was in
there
treatment with
six
you.
weeks before me,
That's dope.
and he saw that look of fear in my eyes, and he looked at me and he smiled, and he said, "You're gonna be okay. You're in the right place." And it was just like I believed him. I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm gonna be okay, and I'm in the right place." Like two things I really needed to know.
Peace of
Like
mind.
when somebody shows up new to any meeting, the first thing I say to them now is, "You're in the right place,"
I
because
love that.
they are often wondering, "Where the fuck am I? And what am I doing here?" And
Yeah.
if you tell them that they're in the right place, they're like, "Oh, okay. Like I could be in the right place."
Yes. Yes.
You know?
And my God, like and you hit on something, and it made me think about it. You probably had to face that. That was probably one of the biggest fears you've ever had to face and overcome, right? Is walking through that door. So you went from like being so scared, like
Yeah.
so unbelievably broken down and scared, and not knowing what the hell was in store for the rest of your life, whether you're going to go in there and get your ass beat. You didn't know, and you
Yeah.
walked in there, and you had somebody come up to you and say you're in the right place. That is
Yeah.
so amazing. That's so amazing because kind of my first bout with like detox. I went into detox, and then I went into treatment subsequently after a few detox stints. I woke up in detox after my car ran off the road because my body shut down, right? And I remember I woke up in detox in the bed, and the gentleman next to me, yeah, he big time partier for years and years. He just looked over me, and I kind of laughed because I kind of came to, and I'm like, where the fuck am I, right? And he's like, "What's up, buddy?" And he kind of asked me a couple questions. He goes, "Bro, you're in the right place, man. We're gonna get you some food." And I just went, "Okay, like I'm gonna follow that guy. I'm gonna follow him." And it made me feel so much better because I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was so scared.
Being in
I
the
was so
right place is way better than the wrong place.
man,
Like
man,
it's like, "Oh, I'm in the right place." Because that's
man.
not the wrong place. Like wrong place
Yes,
you got to get out of.
yes. And if you go into it thinking you're in the wrong place, please give me some kind of positivity. Because I can go downhill quick because I'm already down
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important. It's important. And if you, I'm telling you, at rehab, I get on late meetings with people when we stay in the parking lot and when they're really struggling. they're struggling to stay clean, one of my first questions is I ask them is, have you been to inpatient treatment?
Yeah.
And a lot of times the answer is no. Um, and I implore you, like Milan just said, I want to second that and third that, fourth that, fifth that. If you have not been to an inpatient treatment, you're
And
struggling,
have the
and you
opportunity.
have the opportunity to do
Don't
that. Even,
pass it up.
do not pass it up. Do not pass it up. I know it might seem like the stupidest idea, and that everybody hates you. I understand, and I completely sympathize with those feelings. But what it does is it really makes you get to thaw out, man. Look,
It's the
our bodies.
opposite of brainwashing. It's
Yes,
brain cleansing,
yes,
where it's
yes,
like it lets you see yourself.
bro. You eat, you sleep, you drink, you pee, you poop. You do the things that you normally are supposed to do, because a lot of times that's the problem. Is the drugs get us so stopped up, right? We get stopped up internally, mentally, spiritually, all that shit. It allows our body, like an ice cube, just to thaw the hell out, and go, all right. Like whether they get you on some maintenance medication, they're gonna put you on some kind of cocktail of like, hey, you're gonna be okay with yourself, right? You get acclimated with others. I looked at it as a college environment almost. It was like I was in a college dorm with 75
Yeah.
other individuals, and yeah, you're gonna have hardships, but look, you're gonna get 3 meals a day. You're gonna get some popsicles. You're gonna get some. I mean, you're gonna get.
We didn't have no popsicles,
Bro, I
Milan.
worked in the galley. I worked in the
I
galley, so I
wanted
volunteered to work
popsicles.
in the galley, and so I was like I was the kitchen plug,
We
so
had
I could get like,
smoothies.
oh, okay, there you go. Well, we had a lemonade machine, so you get all time lemonade. You get coffee in the morning, right? They don't let you stash coffee all day. Well, ours didn't, but hey, I'm grateful for the recovery place I went to. Look, and it's so crazy. You wouldn't guess what the facility I went to, and we don't endorse anything here, but the Phoenix House.
Whoa,
Come
that's
on,
pretty wild.
in
Yeah.
DC, yeah, come on, man.
And
You can't make this shit up.
I would like to plug mine. Mine is Options Treatment Center in Kelowna, BC.
Yeah,
And it now has some government funded beds. It didn't
yeah,
when I went there. So you can either be paying to go or you can be applying and getting in line to go. But the
yeah.
lady, Susie Golimba and Shirley Paling, who run the place, they're top notch.
That's awesome.
They saved my life. Anybody out there that's afraid of going to treatment, please don't fear it. Like,
Yes, please don't fear it.
like
Don't
it,
fear it.
yeah, no.
Yep. And then I want to just because it was for the Phoenix House, and now it's National Capital Recovery and Treatment Center in Arlington, Virginia. Reggie is the director over there. They're amazing. Please check them out. They're
Mhm.
amazing if you get a chance.
And I get the privilege on New Year's Day to go back and be the speaker for the people in Options.
Do you,
Yeah,
man? Look at
so
you, man.
it's
That's pretty cool,
I'm pretty
bro.
honored and pretty
That made
stoked.
my whole body just
Yeah,
all every. Oh man, that's great. The gifts of recovery, bro.
absolutely.
Proud of you.
You've got a question, Andrew, or
Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, I wanted to run off on this. So the courage it takes. All right, right. The serenity to accept the things we cannot change often comes after we have had the courage to change the things that we could. Right. That's in our literature. I think there's kind of two phases to it, right? But the courage that it takes. So the courage that it takes a newcomer to come into these rooms originally is is unbelievable, right, in itself. And there's a lot of different layers to that, whether they came in court mandated or whatever. But I'm talking about somebody who comes in here needing to come in here knowing trying to work on themselves. And then there's the courage that it takes an old timer who's relapsed, right, or anybody who's relapsed, but let's say specifically an old timer that's relapsed.
mm,
um you know, like we've had a couple guests on, Miss Wendy, 32 years clean, relapse,
mm.
but it, in his is now 18 months clean, you know, and rocking it. Do you think it's what do you think is tougher? You think it's tougher to come in here as a newcomer? You think it's tougher to come back from a relapse, and kind of, you know, expound on
So,
that?
well, from my point of experience, right? Like all of my relapses would have been before I entered the program. You know, when I was white knuckling.
Yeah.
Uh, for
Do you consider
me,
those relapses, or just not stopping using essentially?
I don't consider them relapses because I wasn't
Me
working the
neither.
program.
Me neither. Me
You
neither.
know,
I'm the same way.
like it's one thing to fail, like it's one thing to like be on a racetrack with your car and say you lost a race. But if I
Right.
never actually get in the racetrack, I'm like, I'm like, I'm driving down the road. Yeah, I lost the race because I
Yeah.
wasn't on the fucking track. Like,
Yes.
but anyway, for me, what was probably the hugest stumbling block is that, you know, I've always been a pretty intense and a pretty absolute person. And inside that personality, I knew that the second I said I was an addict, that there'd be no going back. So, like, there'd be no going back with my family. You know, like they'd be like, hey, you said you're an addict, there's no going back. But also inside me, the second I actually said that out loud, that was going to be an irreversible sentence. And, you know, I'd like to hope right now that if I did relapse, like that the admission that I'm an addict is done. That the admission
Yeah.
that you know the relapse is an obvious proof that I'm fucking powerless. You
Yeah.
know, but the reality for me is that I'll never have to take that first step of actually saying I'm an addict again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was 51 years, you know, 37 years of use for me to say that one sentence, man.
Yeah.
And so, like, that, that courage, knowing that I was going through the door, which was going to slam permanently shut behind me,
Yeah.
the door of non-addiction was like boom. There's not even a handle on it.
The
There's
world
no
knows.
keyhole. There's no keyhole. And that to me, that very moment took the most courage of anything I feel like I've did in my life up to that point.
You have changed my answer. You changed my answer because I was gonna say I'm gonna start off with my first answer and then I'm gonna finish because I agree with you on that. I yes, it takes a lot of courage to get in here. A lot of times we're forced into these rooms, but then staying in these rooms is a whole different deal. But I want to just give credit to the person who I think about. I think about relapsing now. And I think about the people that I've seen relapse and come back. There was a couple of people, 3, 4, 5 years, and then they come back and go, "I've got a year or day clean," and I'm talking about the whole room starts crying. Um, I think about if I were to relapse, I don't think y'all would hear from me for a few weeks because it
No,
would be really tough. Like it would be tough. It would be so tough for me to tuck my tail because I'm so involved, right? I am so extremely involved in service. I've got sponsees. Like it would devastate me. Uh,
I would have
but
my tail between my legs. Like I would, not, my phone ringer would be off if my phone was on at all.
yes, yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. But then, as you just said, what you said, it put me through the emotions of actually being able to come to terms of that word that I'm an addict, and that is, man, that that's the toughest thing I think I've ever really had to do, man, and it took what 35 30 some years, right, to actually admit that I was an addict, even though I'm no, to put it out there that I'm an addict, because I was in denial for a long time, didn't even know I am lying. I was in denial, and my
Mm-hmm.
sponsor says denial is not only it's not only a river in Egypt, right? Denial, he goes, but like it's a real thing.
It's a
Denial,
river of bullshit.
it's a river of BS, right? So I was living in that denial for a long time. I had gone to I was going to a therapist for a while. They were trying to get me into treatment, and when they would even put that on the desk of like, here's a treatment facility, I would get so pissed off, man, because I'm like, you're not doing that to me. I'm not. That's not me. It's not me. Uh, but it was absolutely me, and it was absolutely needed. And I'm so glad that I got the locks changed. I'm so glad that I was essentially homeless, living in my car, with my dog, and I was in complete degradation. I was in complete degradation. I still didn't want to admit that I was an addict. And to finally have to get into that treatment facility program and know that I wasn't alone, and that it's not I'm not a bad person, right? Because we've talked about it before. This is a disease that has us convinced that we don't have it. It's the only disease that can literally trick us into thinking we don't have it. And so I'm not a dumb person, right? And so I've got to put down that bat, pick up a feather, man. I've been in denial for so long, and the courage that it takes to get in here and to be like, all right, I'm going head in. Um, the same courage that it takes for you to leave what's behind, is and that's not for you anymore, which is that addiction and the disease, is the same courage that's going to help you find your way to what is, which is recovery. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it's going to take a lot of courage. You know, think about that. That same courage that it took for you to get out of that shit is going to be the same courage that's going to take you to get into this shit right here.
So then describe the courage it took to start your recovery.
Courage. It takes.
Like there's that moment, right?
Yeah.
Where the usage stops and the focus goes from addiction to recovery.
Yep. That was.
Describe that
Oof.
courage it took for that.
Yeah, I remember being when I was in rehab. When I was in rehab, and I started developing a couple relationships in rehab, and I would see people on the phone talking to their girlfriends and their families and stuff, and I wasn't getting phone calls. I didn't want to get phone calls. I was like I was shutting off the outside world, right? Because I was still kind of in that I'm not here, but I'm here. I don't know what's going on. And I remember the first time like I made an outgoing call to like my family and kind of told them how I was feeling and what I was going through as in this process. Um, and I broke down, man. I broke down because I realized that I had been fighting it for so long, Milan. I'd been fighting doing this for so long, and I had been trying to be forced into doing it. And as an addict, we're not going to do it if it's not on our own account. Like unless we are fucking thrown in there, but hand over fist, we are not going in there unless we lose it all, right? Um, and so when I finally came down, I broke down, and I was able to realize that that I did have a drug problem, that I was an absolute addict. Um, oh my God, I was able to breathe different, man. I was able to breathe different. I was able to handle myself. I was able to handle myself the next day different. And I don't mean like just walking around different, but I felt different. I felt different because I could ease into this process now, right? I could try to take some suggestions, not fight them. I could try to look for the similarities, not the differences. Because I'm coming into this process trying to go, I'm different, I'm different, but I'm really the same, the same. And if I'm gonna find reasons why it's not gonna work, if I'm looking for reasons why it's not gonna work, I'm gonna find them. If I'm looking for reasons why it will work, there's way more of those. Way more of those why it will work. So I remember that time, and then it changed for me. That's when I started volunteering in the galley, and I actually started waking up naturally when I would hear the building waking up, because there were 75 people in there. I'd wake up at like 4:30 in the morning, just not even with an alarm clock, before everybody else got in the shower, made my bed, tried to set the example. In my we had like four people to a room. You had like four people in your whole place, but we had four people in a room, right? So you're really crammed in there, and then it's one shower. So I almost was going back to my old way of thinking when I was back in school, where it was like I would wake up and want to get in the shower and get ready for school and things like that. And I didn't even, and it was uncomfortable. It was actually uncomfortable, but I would do it. I would wake up every day and I'd go, hey, I'm going to go get my medication. And I get the shower so that I wouldn't be anybody else's way. I didn't have to have any confusion or some kind of stress in the morning running around these kids that are all in their own problems, right? And I just tried to set the example. Little did I then after that they started seeing me getting up and I was making the coffee for everybody. They would line up, I was making coffee for everybody. It gave me some purpose. Then they started having me doing the loud call on the speaker, where it's like, wake up everybody, make your bed, time to get up. It just, that courage catapulted me into just not wanting to kill myself anymore. And when I don't want to kill myself anymore with drugs or just on purpose, um, I just want to not do, I want to do the opposite. I want to do good for myself. I want to set an example. I want to be a leader. I want to stay in the herd, man. I want to stay in the group, stay out of that grip of active addiction, because that shit fucking sucks, man. That is the worst. It's not, drugs don't make anything better, and we think it does. It's not. It's our artificial means to gain our spiritual experience, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So that was when I was in treatment and I was finally able to reach out to family members and say, look, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, and just cry with them. And then I realized that I had people that still love me and still were there for me. And I started getting care packages in the mail, right? And I realized that I still had some backing, and that I still had my body and my brain had already given into the fact that I was going to be like this for the rest of my life, or I was just going to die, or that every opportunity I had in my life was done. And when I was able to admit that I was an addict, and know that there's a process to get out of this, and see that there's people everywhere doing it, man, it gave me hope that I could do it too. And I saw people that were way worse than I was, getting through this and getting through it clean, and then getting through tough times clean with extended clean time. And I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it. Um, and so I felt it. I leaned into it. And rehab, it was necessary, man. Please go. This is turning into a rehab episode. Go, courage, rehab, all the same thing. Go, go, go. It will get you right. If you are on the fence about quitting or active addiction, just go, because it'll sway you into the right way. Because if you're not thinking about it, then nothing's going to change your mind. There were guys that have been in there 35 times. We're sitting in our NA meeting in the day, and you see Earl come in, and they're like, "What's up, Earl?" And it's his 35th time there, and he sits down, and he's just got this far off gaze in his look, in his eyes, and we know Earl's here for the 35th time. Which room is Earl in? You don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that person that just is okay with being in those rehabs, because you can get complacent with that too, where you just go from rehab to rehab, and you're not accountable for your life. And the next thing you know, you're 65, 80 years old, and what are you doing? You've been in here 35 times. Why are you coming still? It's just for a place to live, really, right? That's not the go there and work on yourself. Eat some food, get some rest. Get into a little conflict with your peers, because then when you come out, the world is still going, man. And you're they tell you a lot in rehab that your disease is outside of those doors doing push-ups and sit-ups while you're in there. So it's going to be way tougher than you when you get out. In a real quick story, when I went in there was one guy. So I'm like 6'3", right? I played basketball. When I went in there was a gentleman who was a little bit. There was one guy that was taller, tall, handsome gentleman. And I took to him. He was like my big brother in there. He kind of showed me the ropes in there, right? And he stayed in there 60 days. He actually stayed in there twice as long as I did. And this guy would share in the NA meetings, which none of us really did, right? And we all really looked for this guy. He was like the leader of that, they have like a meeting guy that runs the meetings, and it's one of the inmates, right? And so he graduated about 2 weeks after, let's say a week and a half after I got there. And we were like, man, we exchanged numbers, because he was like, man, I don't really, he lived close to me. He said, I might move to Virginia Beach. We talked about moving into an Oxford house together. Like, this guy, I was going to follow him out of there, bro. And he was so strong. Like, if anybody was going to make it, he would. Within 2 days, we're out in the back, because there's like a backyard fenced up, privacy fence. So we can't like hop the fence and stuff. And we hear somebody like throwing rocks at the windows and like calling out people's names, like in a really weird fashion. It was this guy. This guy had left, got into some shit immediately when he got into the taxi, got a hold of some substances. I won't name the substances. He literally blacked out from those substances, wound up 2 hours away on somebody's roof. Look, this guy is 6'8", bro. He wound up on somebody's roof. He don't know what's roof, how he got on the roof, whose roof it was on, and how they found him is because he got up in his concussed stupor from being on this roof. However, he got in there, he was standing, pilled up and whatever it out, and he started walks off the roof. Breaks his leg, like has a concussion, like almost should have broke his neck and died. They found him in their front yard after he fell off their roof. he ends up getting away from the gets away from there, and he's outside of he gets a ride to our treatment center and sleeps underneath the bench when it rains for 2 days, while the director freed up a bed for him, like an emergency bed for him. And it ended up working out where as I was literally getting in the car to leave, he was coming in beat to shit, bro, beat to shit, like going in for his next stint in. And I'm like, man, big bro, like what happened? What the fuck? What happened, man? So what that did for me is it made me realize that, like, I'm not safe. I wasn't safe, right? Like when I left there, they are absolutely right that your disease is doing push-ups and pull-ups the entire time that you're out there, bro. Because it took my man immediately. He woke up on somebody's roof, and now
Man.
somebody. I mean, that's a wild story, man. So then he's in a cast at the rehab, going back in when I'm coming out, man. And it was humbling to me. I almost wanted to follow him back in there, you know. But he's doing well now. He went through it again, and he's actually doing really well. Just had a kid, just had his first son. He's actually doing really, really well. So there's a good ending to that story. He had the courage to come back. He found his way back and would not leave the front of our facility until Reggie found him a bed.
Well,
So the director found him a bed, and
he knew he wasn't ready to go out on his own, man. Like after that, he realized he needed to come back.
Yeah, he said, "I'm gonna sleep out here until y'all find me a bed." And what are you gonna do? They're not gonna leave him out there. They had just had him in there. And you can pull. There's scholarships and things you can do, right? To if you don't have the means to get into these things, that's another thing, Milan. If you don't have the means to get into a rehab center, go online and do some research. There are scholarship programs where people can scholarship you into these things. All you have to do is apply, and put your message out there, put your story, put what you're going through out there. I don't know the exact route about doing it, but I know there are scholarships, and there are, like, these places have it's called a scholarship that will allow you to go free of charge. So there are avenues for that too.
Nice.
Yeah, man. So yeah. Again, the same courage that's going to take you for you to leave behind what's not for you is going to be the same courage that will take you to find what really is, and that's in your addiction. Look, so that's two phases, Milan. That's what I want you to expound on, if you would. That was my question, or I want you to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
With that statement being said, the courage it takes for you to leave behind what's not for you anymore is the same courage it will help you find your way to what is, right? And there's two phases to that: the addiction phase and the recovery phase. Are you with me? So like, expound on that, because the addiction part of that, there's some courage to take you get through that addiction. Now that we're in recovery, we're working on a whole nother set of things that we have to push through, right?
Now, what do you mean by the courage and the addiction? Or you mean like
the courage it takes to leave okay. We've kind of taught, what I mean? Like leave.
Sure. So I was thinking about this while you were talking there, and I realized for myself, I don't know if it was courage that got me to the treatment center as much as fear. My near-death experience was the most terrifying, coldest, darkest phenomena I've ever touched. And so I was scared straight at that point. Like, dude, you could have had 10 guys come at me with iron pipes, and it would not have been as scary as that moment. And I've been attacked by 16 guys before. Like, I know that terrified feeling. And even that felt like I had a fighting chance against, but not the cold darkness of death. And it was fear. It was fear at the start for me. There was no courage. It was like, I was like that feeling of like when you're running from a cop. You're not even looking back. You're going forward. You're running as hard as you can.
You're not even jumping over the fences. You're plowing through them. You're plowing through the
You're
fences.
just like hitting part of the fence and rolling and still running.
Yes,
and like, and you might not even have a flashlight. You're like, was that a car? I don't know. Like, just those moments like that. And that was me. And which direction was I going? Away from addiction at that point. I had no path. I had no light. But then all of a sudden, I just knew that I wasn't going back there.
Yeah.
And when my family was like, okay, you need to go to treatment in order to stay part of this family, um, there really wasn't much resistance from me at that point. I needed, I detoxed at home for 13 days. And so by the time I got to the treatment center, I was so retarded coming out of my addiction that I didn't even really research anything about what it was going to be like in there because I could barely read. I could barely
Yeah.
read. I could barely think. My frame of mind was really not very good living in the house of perpetual hatred before I got there.
Yeah.
Like they were like, we're gonna hate you till you get out and come back better. Like and that's what, so it was okay because really I deserved it at that point. Like I don't feel like that was
Yeah.
like the fact that they were even willing to keep me as part of the family felt pretty fucking amazing in
You were
my
just
life.
running from that black hole, man. You were running from
That's
that black
right.
hole, man.
So, but the first courage was to open my mind. And that was necessary within the first 12 hours of being there at the treatment center. Like, it was just like, okay, I failed in my own personal quest for life philosophy. My life actions, my life actions were sucking machine wasn't even working anymore that I live in. Like it just can't get crappier than that to me. And when I got there, I was just ready for whatever they were going to say. And so, but that took me putting aside some lifelong resentments. One of them being about any kind of God or higher power thing. Like that right away was like, yeah, I think I could, handle change in my life, but there's no chance I'm ever going to believe in anything like that. And like that was like, I literally got introduced to a book by a friend who's in the program called The 12 Steps Without God. Like, and I had that with me. I had read that right before I got there. And that was one of the things, but the admission verbally, that was, you know, that was like sitting down and like, it looks like nothing at a meeting now. But when somebody's like, hi, I'm Milan alcoholic or Milan addict, depending which meeting I decide to be at, right? That was a fucking big thing.
Yeah.
Like that, like it's like, it's almost like a whimsical thing now for me. Hi, I'm
Yeah.
Milan, the absent-minded addict, there's still the word addict at the end,
Yeah.
and you know, um, it was difficult. It was difficult to be able to say, and it was even more difficult to say out loud.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say it inside your brain. It's another thing to write it down where you could control who looks at your paper.
Yeah.
It's another
Yeah.
thing to be in a group of strangers and proclaim that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know, anybody who thinks that they're going to get a solid recovery without work, in my mind, is kidding themselves. Like
Yeah.
they're handing recovery out at the door, but it's like IKEA furniture, man. Like you can't sit on the fucking couch till you put it together.
Willingness without action is fantasy, guys. I'm
That's
telling
right.
you, it's fantasy. We're not playing a video game here. There is no
Mm,
restart button. We're not going to take the Nintendo game out, blow it off, and put it back in and start the game over. It doesn't work, man. You can go out of this world and not come back. Very easy to say.
absolutely.
Very, 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 very easy. So we've got to play it like it is. We only have one shot at this thing
Like
called life.
we've taken the easy way out our whole life. Like
Facts.
our whole life, we've taken the easy way out.
Yeah.
So when they say you got to change everything, part of that change is actually doing the work necessary for a better life because we've never
Facts.
put it in.
Yes,
We've never
yes.
put it in. We've never worked on ourselves to free ourselves from these defects to be able to interact in a way that is principle orientated.
And we have had our middle finger to the world for that entire process, right? So think about this. Here's where my spin goes on it, Milan. And I love that you hit on this. So we've been saying like "f you" to the world, being a leech on society for a long time, doing drugs, not giving a shit, right? Who we mess up around us. Here's where I try to empower myself, right? Is the biggest "f you" I can do to drugs is to stay abstinent. The biggest "fuck you" to drugs I can do is to not pick up. So I can live in that lane that I used to, where I'm like, F the world, but I can be like, F drugs. Look, I know it wants me to use. I know that so it says in my literature that an addict not using is in an abnormal state, right? So I know as an addict, my body wants me to be using drugs or some kind of substance. So the biggest fuck you I can say to that drug and that disease is to not pick it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So think about that, like I try to I stay in that, like, so I'm going to stay rebellious, right? But against the drugs, not
Yeah.
against not the drugs, right? Not against the people that want to keep me off drugs. I want to stay rebellious against those drugs because I've been
See,
rebellious against the people trying to keep me off of them for so long.
did you ever see the Seinfeld episode where George does the opposite of everything he wants? Like that's how I took entering recovery. I was like, everything I did didn't work, you know,
Yeah.
and so now I was just like, okay, what's my instinct? Okay, let's go to the opposite of that.
Yeah, I would steal from that guy. Now I'm gonna not steal from that. I'm gonna give that guy some socks.
But you know, like I would be lazy. Now I won't be lazy. I would avoid the work. Now I'm doing the work. You know,
You know what you were
I
doing? You were
would be
working on your
dishonest.
defects.
Now I'm being honest.
You were working on your step work right then,
I
because
would,
that's
I
what we do.
use the
We make those lists.
Costanza method of recovery.
That is so funny. That's funny. That's taking your character defects and then
Mhm.
working on them in that next step, right? That you were essentially working on step work through the Costanza method, and I
That's
love
right.
it. I love it. I love it, right? Because we make that list. We make a tired list of our defects, right? And then we
Mm.
turn right around and what do we do in our step work? We work on the opposite. If we're people that are always late, we work on being early. If we lie, we work on telling the truth. And it's something that we learn in these steps. We talk about these steps all the time. It's keys to freedom, guys.
So let's do a quick run through the steps and the courage necessary at each step.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
I think that for our listeners out there, for somebody who's new, you know, we could describe some of the challenges that we've had personally at that point, and I think that
Wanted to
um,
get my book.
yeah. So if you want to read out the step, and then you could say the courage you think it takes,
Yeah.
I'll chime in whether I'm in
Yeah,
agreement
yeah,
or not.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
We'll
that's
go
a
one
great.
to 12.
That's
Boom.
great. That's great. I like that's a great idea. All right, cool. So step one. All right, I'm just gonna read from Howard. So if you
Yeah.
want what we have to offer, guys, and are willing to make the effort to get it, and you're ready to take certain steps, these are the principles that made our recovery possible. Why it says the principles is because it's through these steps we learn spiritual principles. It's not just answering these questions, guys. It's the spiritual principles that we learn. The steps.
The
Look,
questions are made to make you think. They're
correct.
not made. They're not the actions that it takes.
Correct. So and to me, the step work questions, they don't mean shit. It's the spiritual principles I gain
Yeah.
through working these steps that is everything. So
Yeah.
one, we admitted we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. In terms of courage, we've really hit on that. I hit on that right when I first opened up.
Hmm.
To be able to surrender and admit that we're powerless and that we are unmanageable over this disease was
It takes
extremely. It takes everything. It takes every ounce of courage that you have in your body to do that.
it takes courage for that honesty.
Yeah, you gotta be honest with yourself, and then with everybody else, and you gotta put it
Yep.
out there, right? And it holds yourself accountable. You're in agreement with that?
And it takes courage to change. Like it takes
Everything.
courage to desire to change from
Yes.
that bad state.
And to set boundaries. You have to set boundaries. Avoid
Mhm.
old people, playmates, and playgrounds, right? You have
Yep.
to avoid those. If you got to change your number, change your number. If you have to leave the area you are, they do say you are wherever you go.
Yeah.
But if some people do need a change of location just to change it up, and
Maybe
I've
you
seen
need to
that work for
change your
people.
house, but like I just think I think this one thing is that if you go somewhere else, first of all, you might put yourself in even further economic hardship, and you
Yes.
might be lonelier away from some family support that might be necessary to get you through those first steps.
What if your family's your enablers?
Then we talk about it on a podcast.
So yeah, so that's where it comes in, where you're like, hey,
Yep.
I've got some family
There's
that's
no
helping.
solution.
Yeah,
Yep.
but see, but then what it says, it does mention something in our literature about when you do go to that new place, it just gives you an opportunity to take advantage of new people.
Hmm. And but I just I was ready to run from where I lived because everybody I knew here was using or an addict of some sort. And what I realized is that I can be the seed of change,
Yeah,
and I don't have to run.
there you go.
So,
Same thing with me. I am in the place that I grew up. I'm still in the
mm,
place that I lived and grew up, and then I've done all the drugs in my life, and I
mm,
know where all everything is, right? But
yeah,
I'm empowered by that now, man. I'm
yeah,
like
like you're
bulletproof.
strong
It's my
enough
superpower.
to.
It's my
That's
fucking
right.
superpower now.
You're
You
strong enough
know,
to drive by that house and it not be like the smell of fried chicken when you go by KFC.
exactly. Now, early on, I'm not going to come out of rehab and go, read a book down the street from that
Yeah,
place,
yeah,
but now I have a life, right, where I'm not
mm,
looking for things to do. I stay busy, jobs and other things and
yeah.
podcasts and things like that and meetings. So I'm staying busy and I fly by those as a productive member of society today, and I'm proud of it. you
Okay,
know
step two.
yep. step
Let's
two
take.
step two so we came to believe in a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Now there's a lot of interpretation in these steps. We got to always go with the wordings. That's what I want to always stress, is that it's important to the wording. A lot of people will get confused about what these steps mean if you really read the wording,
Mm,
because we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Because look, we're not believing in anything at this point. We're just believing in that it could happen, right, Milan?
okay,
Now hear me out on this. It's like it's kind of like if an electrician comes to your house, you have to trust that he's going to work on whatever the issue with it, and that when he says turn the lights on, that the lights are going to come on.
yeah,
Do you understand? Like, we're
yep.
not believing in the actual. We're believing that if he says turn the lights on, we turn the lights on. They're going to come on, right?
So I would say that the courage required on this step is the courage to begin to be open-minded.
Yes. You
Like
got you.
it's like the birth of open-mindedness
It's
right here.
taking that closed mind and at least cracking that bitch open.
And and also the courage to have somewhat of an admission of insanity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like the courage to say, "Hey, I'm probably not thinking clearly here.
Yeah. Yeah. Because look, the
Show me some
definition of
clarity."
insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting the same, or not,
Yep.
and knowing what my definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, even knowing what the
Yeah.
result's going to be. And I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not even expecting a different result, Milan, but I'm still doing it. What the hell's wrong with me? Like what in the hell is wrong with me? Right. So, so,
Mm,
so it's addict behavior, man. It's
mm.
addict behavior. All right. So, yeah, I would agree with you. Let me hit three now. Want to
Yeah.
go to three? Okay. So I like how we're doing this. Did you just come up with this?
Yeah.
I love this. I love this. Ad lib.
Well, I
So
had it in my questions, but yeah.
that's cool, man. That's cool. So three, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. I'll say it again. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Now, I know a lot of people think this is the most important step of all of them. Because um,
I
I
think the
don't know.
first one is the very most important, but I agree that it has a huge importance.
Yeah, I don't think it takes a whole lot of courage on this step. I think it really takes it's really just a bleed over from the first, because look, these first three steps are what are getting us right with our higher power. We talk
I
about this
think
all
that
the time.
there's quite a bit of courage here.
Do you? Okay, well, tell me about that.
Okay,
Like courage.
I think a really easy thing is to be a control freak because it doesn't. You don't have to have the courage to put your opinion on the line.
Yeah.
Like when you believe that everything should be as you think it should be, then that puts you in a position where you're not vulnerable, and that your thoughts and actions might not be right.
Yeah.
You know, so it takes the courage to actually stop and observe with humility what's happening and seeing how you don't need to control that.
And you are making a decision, right?
You,
It
you
does say
you're
making a decision.
absolutely you're absolutely making a decision, but your
Okay.
decision is now based on the view through the water of humility.
Yeah. Which we never had before.
I never had a clear view of what was going on
No.
until I clarified my
Yeah.
view.
And humility is so important. Being able to ask for help, guys.
Yeah.
It's not a sign of weakness. Being able to ask for help is not a sign of weakness. It's how people get in
Humility
places.
is basically being honest with yourself and your actions.
And that and if you can't, yeah, that you can't figure everything out, man. You got to be humble. Got to be
Yeah.
humble. Got to remain humble. It's very important. All right, number four. So this is where. So the next three steps are where we get right with ourselves. Okay, guys. So
Mm.
number four. This is the start of it. This is where a lot of people run. We make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Now, what that means, Milan, is that we are taking an inventory. It's like a business, right? And a lot of people think it's all the bad stuff, right? We're going to write everything bad. No, but it's the when a business takes an inventory, they take stock of all the good stuff, the bad stuff, and the good stuff, right? So we're taking, but it's a fearless and more searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So we're really
It's
digging
the
deep.
moral inventory that makes me fearless.
Like it, love
But
it.
I also
Mhm.
have to approach it fearlessly.
Yeah,
And by that fearlessness, I truly believe that that's where the honesty and humility comes in.
yeah,
Like the only way to cut through our bullshit is to stop bullshitting ourselves
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah,
what we're doing.
yeah.
And you know, there was so many points in that took courage to admit my weaknesses in this step,
Yeah,
to admit my faults, to admit my misperceptions,
yeah.
to admit that I was wrong about so many things that I thought I was right about.
That's where
Like
you said the line was going to line up for you, and then you realized, oh
I
shit,
had like man a Costco till lineup.
I got
Like
a lot of mailing out to do. I got a lot of mailing out to do now.
yeah, I'm looking for the extra box of Christmas apology cards. Yeah. So I think that there's courage on so many fronts. First of all, you need the courage to change
Yeah,
and the courage to be willing to change. You need the courage to put your ego down a bit and actually act with that honest humility. You
yeah.
need the courage to step away from your self centeredness and see that, like, what your part is really affecting other people.
And this is the start of getting us away from our self will. Right.
Yeah.
This is where our self will we've been tied up in that self will for so long. We're finally starting to let go of that self will, man. This is
And it
where
takes courage to confront the past that you're carrying
yeah,
in all your resentments. And
yeah,
it takes courage to pull yourself out of the future that you're using as anxiety provoking things.
big time. Big time, 100%, 100%. I
Yeah.
agree with you 100%. But it takes a lot of courage to do this one. I would say get a nice pen, get a nice pad of paper, and just write, and don't stop until you feel better. Because how many pages did you write on this step?
120.
So get grimy with it, guys. Get gritty with it.
Yeah.
Because
Get
it's
a
gonna
new
take.
pen, get some
Yes,
big
get a
rounds
cue.
tips.
Yeah, get the whole whatever you need. Whatever you
Yeah.
need. Get an easel. I don't care what you need. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Because this is a very very important step. It takes a lot of courage in and through this step. but it's through that pain that we are going to see. Look,
And the reason you're doing this work is because somewhere deep inside you still love yourself.
or
Somewhere
we wouldn't be,
inside,
or you
somewhere
wouldn't have even
inside
started.
you got to believe that you're someone worth saving. And if you don't, I do.
And what did we say? We said it the other day, Milan. The magic that we're looking for is in the work that we're avoiding. The work
Yeah.
that we're avoiding is this that we're talking about right here.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Don't
so
take six
love it.
months for your step four. Don't
Nope,
take
nope.
6 months.
And then when you get done with the step 4, do not wait to go right into step 5. Do not
Yeah.
wait. Do not wait. Do not wait, or you
Yeah.
risk not ever going back to it.
Yeah.
I think it references that in our literature somewhere, like
Yeah.
specifically.
Have it set up that you give yourself a deadline to complete by and have your appointment with that person for the step 5. And
Right.
like some sponsors do and some sponsors don't want to hear it. Don't be offended if your sponsor doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Some sponsors want to preserve something about the relationship because they know they're not strong enough to hear it without judgment.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
need someone that's strong enough to hear it without judgment. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that person's not going to be a good sponsor. But,
Right.
like I just think that, set yourself up to finish it and just give yourself a deadline, but make the time to do it too.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that one. I think we've
Yeah.
touched on enough on that one. So here, step 5. Um, this is important. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. I'll say it again. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. That means right there, that's when we bring it home that we cannot do this by ourselves. We have to. So there has to be, and this could be the key to the rest of your life. It cannot be just you doing this, right? You have to have a higher power, right? It doesn't have to be God. It has to be
Mhm.
any kind of higher power that's bigger than you, yourself, and one other person. You need one other person that has belief in you that you can get clean. And it doesn't even have to be your sponsor, preferably your sponsor, and preferably you have more than one person. But what it says in our literature that you only need God, yourself, and one other person, and you can stay clean for the rest of your life, Milan.
And I truly believe it has to be somebody you trust.
Yes.
Like if there's any kind of trust issues, find another person.
Yeah.
Like I feel that it's a real state of vulnerability you put yourself in, and this step takes as much courage as step 4.
Oh
Like
yeah.
to be able to verbalize your dirtiest dirt of your life in its entirety. Like they don't say a partial moral inventory.
No.
They're not
No.
like, hey,
It's the
pick,
whole.
pick the real easy stuff and read it out to
We
someone.
need to
That's
know
not
that
what
you
it
have
says.
rodents in the back area, in the back closet. We need all that shit.
We
We
need
need
to
all the
know
rats.
the people you fucked over, how you fucked them over, yourself, like everything.
Is this
All
the
the
most important step to you? Because you said, hey, you didn't after you worked at step 5, you cried for 2 days, and you finally felt like acceptance after that.
well, I feel that for me, the whole 4 to 6,
Yeah,
the whole 4 to 6, I can't separate them because I feel like they're one little process.
I
Like,
love it. Yeah,
like I feel that just doing the inventory would not bring about the change.
no,
Just
no.
reading
It can make it
something
worse. That could
just
make it
reading
worse.
something to somebody, if you hadn't gone through the inventory thing, wouldn't
That
you?
can bring up
And
more
now,
problems.
and then now you're about to read step 6, so I'm not going to blow that one. I'll let you read it, and then I'll tell
Yeah,
you
yeah,
how I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it
yeah,
ties
yeah,
in.
yeah. Yeah, so it takes a lot of courage to actually put it out there. But if you put it out there in step 4 that you have, if you really go and dig deep and you pull out all those calluses and then you expose them and then you don't work on them, you
Mhm.
risk really hurting yourself in this process, right? You might not ever come back because you're like, bro, I have put out things that I haven't thought about in a long time. And if you don't put trust in this process and have enough courage to move right into that next step, you can risk going back out quick and might not, you can never come back, man.
Mhm.
So yeah, all right, step 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I don't even, I mean, there it is what it
So
is.
boom, first thing is I'm kind of ready. Okay. Like, kind
Question
of
mark?
ready and entirely ready. Like,
Yeah.
there is a massive courage difference. Like, I kind of would have liked to flown a rocket to the moon versus like a guy who trained 40 years as an astronaut, went to college, went to university, was an
Wants to be
Olympic
the first man on the
athlete.
moon.
That's right. Like that guy was entirely ready to go to the moon.
Hmm.
And, we don't need to let them all go and be perfect right away. That's not what it's saying. What it's saying is that we're entirely ready
Ready,
to
yeah,
begin.
exactly.
We're
Doesn't say
ready
we
to
remove
begin
them
that
completely.
process.
Yes.
Like, if you have a defect that you're like, I'm never going to get rid of that, you have now shut the door on
Yeah.
getting this step right.
Yes. Yes.
That's what it says is that so like even if it's something that's going to take time for you to even start changing,
Yeah.
you just got to say this, I'm going to get this eventually. Like that sentence keeps you in the game of trying the step.
Got to do step 4 and 5 correct first though, and
Mm,
thoroughly.
yeah.
Or your step 6 is incomplete, right? You
But
but at least writing them down is getting that process started of being ready to face them up to that guide and go,
this
okay,
this this one gosh, I think that this one might be the real courage one, like to actually be ready to change your whole life. Like you're literally saying, I'll do anything for my recovery. And that means changing everything about me.
step 6 is the antithesis of like
It separates the boys
uh,
from the men.
right. It's like how we were, God, how we poured into addiction and we gave our lives into addiction, but then it was that it's almost as courageous as step 1, as the first step, as actually coming into the program to begin with, and
Hmm.
being ready to have him now remove all of that shit that got us into this program. That's
Mm.
like that first layer of courage. Then you're at step 6, and it's like, bro, it's time to sign up for life here, right? Because I can
Mm.
really make a difference in my life if I can push through that step. And look, the way I look at it, we were entirely ready. That does not mean that it's going to all happen at once, right? And the place table can be made again, right? Like we can always put dishes back on the plate. The table can be made again. We don't have to do everything right now, right? As long as you go through those first few steps, build that solid foundation, the house can be blown down and we can build the house back up on that foundation at any time. But you got to work up to that point, right? To be able to be entirely ready. It says entirely ready. You got to be entirely ready. Entirely ready means entirely working all the steps.
Means not kinda.
Not
Uh,
half-ass.
yeah. And
Yep.
there you hear a lot of talk about progress, not perfection. But
Exactly.
the person who really began that entire saying was not in Narcotics Anonymous, but it was in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And he came out with a revision with the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book.
Right. Right.
And he literally corrects himself there and says, progress towards perfection. And I'm not saying that for people to try and be like OCD, anal obsession about perfection. But
No.
what it is after looking at how this program he helped create functioned for 20 years, he saw that it's like it'd be like a salmon not knowing where they spawn. Like
Yeah.
you have to have a direction because otherwise you don't even know where to shoot your cannon to.
Right.
Like,
Right. What are you
so
looking to?
like why wouldn't you like in the ideal world want to shoot towards that perfect principled action? And so
Leads to
that's
goodwill.
that's kind of like part of this step though. Is that what you're doing is we're aiming our cannon at the change towards living in spiritual principles.
Yeah. Yeah. Love
You
that.
know,
Love that.
like we're
That
going
takes
from that
courage.
pit of dishonesty, anger, resentment, pain causing intolerance, lack of acceptance. And we're looking and we're going, hey, there's the light, man. I want to love.
Yeah.
I want to be honest. I want to have compassion for you. I want to have tolerance for you where you're at now. And I want to have acceptance for this
I want to
world.
make you
I
proud
want to have acceptance for this world that I am struggling with every day.
because I'm not it. I'm not it, right? Right?
Yeah.
I'm not it. I am not it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really good, man. I was gonna say one more thing. I forgot what I was gonna say, but hey, I'll roll into this. So that's your getting right with your that's getting right with yourself, man. That's 4 through 6. We're gonna go into 7, okay? Humbly, so it's number 7. We humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Um, so humbly ask it. So there's that humble word again. Um, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings, right? What does that mean to you, man? Like humbly asking, because once you put your will into once you're able to have God remove all those defects of character, now we humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings.
And so that I
It's a slow
think
process.
boils down to, maybe my skewed opinion, but my opinion that humbly asking there means honestly with humility.
Yeah.
And it's like without that honest humility, you don't see yourself as we really are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, how can you know your freaking shortcomings if you don't know honestly who you are yet? So,
Yeah.
like, that's the importance of the depth of your step 4. Is
Yeah.
that how can you know what to get rid of if you can't even see clearly enough to know your
Or
part
if
in
you're in
stuff?
denial to even write it on the page.
Yeah, that's right. So it boils down to you not only having admitted these defects, but that you're willing to ask for help. It takes courage to ask for help to get rid of it.
Yeah, because
That's the
look,
courage I
asking
take
for
right there.
help is so tough. Like asking for directions is tough, but asking for the courage to help remove something that I've had a problem with for 20 years is takes it takes real courage, man.
Mm.
Because our bodies get acclimated to that, right? If for nothing else, we have a chemical dependence on it,
What? And
right?
even more than 20 years, dude. These are shortcomings you've had since probably you were 2.
Right, right, right. I just lit them on fire during an active addiction,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
light them things on
yeah.
fire,
Mm.
and then you create new ones. So, all right, cool. So we're gonna go into 8. So here we go. This one's a good one. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. This is one where a lot of people get the wording kind of misconstrued. I'll say it again. Number
Mm.
8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. Now, this does take courage, but what it is you're making a list of all persons you had harmed. Now, this is not all persons, not just persons. This is persons, businesses. This is financial. It really goes in depth when you make a list of all places you've stolen from. There's all kinds of things that go into this, making that list of all persons we have harmed. Now, we're not making the amends, right? This is where I was told when I was doing my first step 8. You do step 8 as if there is no step 9. You do step 8 as if that literally that's the last step that there is. Because if you're starting to think about making those amends in that step 9, which we'll get to in a second, you will not. It will not allow you to do that step 8 properly, and as thorough as you need to. What are your takes?
I think it takes courage to see to relive the carnage
I agree with
of
that.
my life.
Yeah,
Like they're 100% courage to relive that carnage of my
it's
life.
emotional.
It takes courage to even picture making an
Yeah,
end to some people,
yeah.
and it takes courage.
But this is where we're not thinking about the amends. Look, this is where don't we're not even thinking about the amends at
Dude,
this
even if you're willing to make it,
point.
even it, like
I'm trying to I'm trying to be
there's
the
no cutoff
I'm
street in that
trying to be that
vision.
other person. I'm trying to be that other guy. I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you.
I know, but like for me, okay, so then if that's what we're talking about now, only then it takes courage to relive that carnage, and
Right.
it takes courage.
To become willing, to actually know you're willing to do that action.
It takes courage to enter into the stage of willingness for action. Absolutely.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yep.
I think this is the the easiest step in terms of work, because making that list, you can make that list, and I know it's hard to revisit it, but it's there. You did it, right? So making
And a
that
lot of
list,
them you've visited in your four to,
you've had
like,
to, you've
yeah,
had to, you've had to at
yeah.
some point.
Mhm.
So here we go. So that's where you got to go right into that step 9. We make a direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Now, there you go. I'll let you start.
So,
This is where we,
okay, so first of all, I just want to say that I now see that a lot of these amends steps are for the person making the amends, not the one you're saying it to, because most of them like either forgotten or just either don't want to deal with you anymore because if you've
yes,
hurt them that bad.
right.
But so it takes a lot of courage to put your ego aside and not make an amends when it actually really will hurt somebody else.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like
yeah.
that, and it takes a lot of courage to face people. It takes a lot of courage to call somebody. It takes a lot of courage to instigate that. It takes a lot of courage to sit through the anticipation of when that's going to occur.
Bro, this is the hard step for me, man. This is one of the hard. This is the I'm not gonna
Yeah,
say the. It's one of the 2 or 3 hardest ones for me,
yeah.
because this is where you really got to put
Mhm.
your ass behind. You got to put your face in front of your ass and really just show up, and you really got to show. Man, it's so courageous to. I was in such fear in this step with making those actions, because you really have to make it black and white on what you did to people, right? It's
Mhm.
like, hey, I did this and I'm sorry. I try to make a living amends. There's some amends that you can make that you don't, sometimes we can't make an amends because they're not alive anymore, right? You
Mhm.
cannot make that living amends, so you have to, there's other ways to do it symbolically, um writing letters to
You
people.
could pour
Sorry
that
about my,
karma in another direction, I
yeah,
think.
and then burn a letter. There's other ways to do it. But this is this one is so tough
This one takes a
on me.
lot of courage because you like you can't be hiding in your home.
Yeah, you can't.
You
You
can't.
can't.
Like you literally have to externalize yourself to the world, whether it's the living amends or not, you know, or
Yeah,
whether it's the direct amends.
yeah,
It's a hard one.
yeah. Can you hear my dog really loud?
Not super loud, no.
Okay, cool. We're gonna move right past
We are
that.
a dog friendly podcast, by the way.
We got a
Yep.
FedEx guy, so that she'll be done in a second. All right, cool.
Yep.
So I think number 9. I just want to notate that I think that might be one of the, if not one of the hardest ones for me personally. Um,
Yeah, I think the courage for me admitting that I was an addict and powerless, that was the hardest one
Yeah.
overall.
So, yep. One and 9, and then four stuff. So, all right, let's get into 10.
Yeah.
So 10. This is now, so 7 through 8. We just went through. That is where we get right with others, guys. That's where we get back acclimated and get right with our peers, and other people. Which in turns gets us right, and gives us goodwill. So now 10, this is our bring it home steps, right? This is our bring it home to self, God, and others. So step 10, this is our daily inventory step. This is our
Mm.
keeping it right with ourselves, right? We continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. I'll start off by saying this. This is, if you do all the other steps right, and you have worked and made amends and do everything right up until this point, this is the easiest step there is, because you can just
Boom,
do this every day.
boom, 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 boom. No way. No way.
No way.
No, but
Okay,
okay. I want you to
let's
say
hear it.
why. I want you to say why.
Because look, if I have done my due diligence in my step work, and I've made my amends, and I've done that inventory, sometimes I don't even have to have a step 10 in my day, right? There's some people that have a step 10 inventory and they kind of make it a daily thing. If I'm constantly working spiritual principles in my life, a lot of times I'm not going to come up with a lot of things throughout the day that I have to take a personal inventory for. If I'm always in that lane, if I'm staying in his lane, and I'm not, and I don't mean that doesn't mean something different for everybody else, but now it is a tough step when there are things that come up, and now I think it's tough to act on it immediately. When we were wrong, promptly admitted it. When I'm wrong in a situation, for me to go right back to that person and say I'm sorry, that's something I was never able to do, and it's extremely uncomfortable for me to do now. But that's really the only hard part about it for me. For me.
So I found in early recovery, some of my most painful moments are facing my failure inside the program.
Okay.
And I feel that I probably created a lot of expectations about how I should be growing. And so this step is a step that you have to have the courage to face your failures on a regular basis. And, like some of doing step 4, you're facing failures from 20 years ago. Like it's real easy to not be hard on yourself, but it's like in the fucking moment with family members every single day. And then to be able to turn around within an hour and say sorry, that like this one to me is one of the most cleansing, liberating, and continually painful ones still.
I think it's one of the most liberating and cleansing, but it's that preventive maintenance, but it can be just cleansing all the time, right? It can just be off the top. I
I
don't have
just
to
got a
make
lot
that.
more shortcomings than you do, I think, right now. And that's okay. Like you're further along in your program.
Yeah,
But
no,
at
that
this
makes
point in
sense.
my program, I think for somebody in early recovery, don't be surprised if you feel like you're failing a lot.
Oh
And,
yeah,
and you need the courage to be pulling through it. And
absolutely.
and so this
I love
step
that.
this step can be a devastating on a daily basis but the important thing about this step is, use something like the IP9. Use something like the
Yes.
IP9, which is a brochure from NA that also lets you see your
Is that
successes
the
in the day.
self-acceptance? Is that what is that? Which one is that?
No, it's for the daily moral inventory.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
It's
Yeah,
literally like a moral inventory, but it shows you the good and the bad, and your successes and your failures.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
all I could say is take the courage to look at yourself because you're never going to change if you don't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And use this step as an opportunity to not put more things on
Mm,
your next
yep.
on your next go round of making amends,
Yep.
right? You don't want to make another making another step 8 and 9. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't do this daily, you don't have to really go back to that step 8 and 9 and go
Mm-hmm.
really hard on it anymore because you've done it already and you're staying right with yourself daily. Cool. Ready to move to 11?
Yes.
This is where we stay. This is our like bring it home step with staying right with God and our higher power. So 11, we saw it through, and this is something that I love we're talking about because I don't meditate a lot. We saw it through prayer and meditation. It's in our steps. The word meditation. We saw it through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Now, when it says through prayer and meditation, does that mean that we have that if we don't meditate, we're not working a full program? Because it says we saw it through prayer and meditation, or it doesn't say or meditation. It says prayer and meditation. Or can prayer be meditation?
Meditation has a lot of definitions for a lot of
Thank
people.
you. That's
Like
what I was going to
for
say.
me, playing music is meditation. But I've
Reading literature
recently
for me.
started guided meditate. Like, it can be jogging.
Yeah,
It can be walking
absolutely.
your dog. It can be just like looking at an ocean.
Yes.
You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
like it's allowing yourself to create that serenity within where you're actually being just in the moment. But it takes courage to see yourself as worth it enough to set that time aside for.
Yep. Yep. What does it say?
I'm,
I'm looking up the dictionary. It's the act of practicing of meditate. That's not the. No, I'm so sorry that I messed you up, man. Go
oh
ahead.
no, I'm fine, and you know, I do believe that both prayer and meditation are met with resistance. First of all, because people have a problem asking for help, myself
Yeah.
included.
Yeah.
And also, our
They've never
world
done
is
it.
so
They've never done
loud.
it.
Our world is so loud that it's really uncomfortable for most people to silence it. Most people
Yeah.
don't want to be alone inside their brain.
And
And so it
meditation
takes,
is the. Oh, I'm sorry. The practice that involves focusing or clearing your mind using a combination of mental and physical techniques.
so I have to leave in 7 minutes. So we got to
Okay.
do
Yep.
12
Yep.
and
Yep.
seven
All
minutes
right.
and wrap
So
it up.
let's do this. All right. So 12. So we have 12. This is where we get right with everybody. This is where we stay right with others. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. I have somebody very dear in my life that says if you are working to step 12 in your life, when you walk into a room, the room changes because you understand that you work all these steps, right, to work on yourself, self, and you bring it home to number 12, and then you realize that this whole thing has nothing to do with you anymore. It doesn't have anything to do with you, and it is empowering when you can realize that being of service to other people are what really is going to help you stay right with yourself. It's going to keep you in that goodwill channel. It's going to keep you doing the right things for the right reasons, regardless of who the hell's looking, and carrying that message. Because look, if we cannot keep all this shit that we're talking about here today, we can't keep that shit unless we give it. What are we doing on this podcast? We're trying to give it. So we can't keep it unless we give it away. Go ahead, Milan. Takes
Probably
a lot
the
of courage.
biggest thing is, to me, is the courage to put that ego aside and see that we're not the end all be all.
Yeah.
And that we are a part in a greater picture. And in order for that greater picture to look even more beautiful, we have to be giving more than we're taking from it. And it's a real, I remember entering into treatment, seeing this step, and being like, fuck everybody else, man. I can barely stay straight myself. I'm like shivering in my own fucking boots. I'll get there someday. And like, I literally wanted to dedicate myself to service like years before entering into the program. But to actually put yourself lower in the big picture, it's a massive move of courage. To actually be willing to get outside of yourself.
Yeah, you're not it.
Yeah.
You're not it. And look, we'll end it on this. I'll just kind of say my thing. The strength that we gain, strength is what we gain from the madness that we survive, right? So be courageous to push through that hard shit, man. I'm telling you that the courage it takes for you to leave behind what is not for you anymore is the same courage it will take for you to find your way to what is. We said that earlier. It's got to be, man. You got to use that same grit that gets you out of that shit, is to get you into this program, because I have to work just as hard, if not harder, at my recovery as I did in my addiction, or I'm going to lose.
I'd like to say that this is part 1 of Courage for Christmas with Milan, Starcic, and Andrew Norman. And there will be a part 2 where we are going to finish this in the next few days.
I love you, bro.
I love you too, dude. That was wicked doing that. Okay, like, everybody.
Boom, last minute. Love it.
If you like what you've seen, please subscribe and share this podcast. We're looking for interaction with our audience. Please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan, South Okanagan, Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you. We're hoping to create slideshows of the Freedom Rising in your lives. Please send any photos of you flourishing as a result of your recovery. Tune in next episode for more recovery fun.
Let it snow.
Love you.